live?
You are live.
We are live. Let me turn the recorder on. Okay, the recorder's on. All right, first thing, and I'm not the chairman, first thing you need to do is to select a chairman for tonight. Because Cookie is the vice chair, and Stacy is the chair, and neither will be here or are here. So one of you needs to volunteer to be the chair. Yeah, go ahead.
And I volunteered in.
Let me put it down. Yeah. Well, do we have a volunteer? A volunteer,
We volunteered in. Really don't really want to chair this meeting, but
Well, I'll make it easy on it. We only have 3 items, and I was gonna ask whoever the chair is, simply to turn it over to me, so we can go through the 3 items and we go home. So,
oh, well, yeah, but there is something I want to put on the record about notice.
well, that's what the first thing I want to talk about.
Okay. Notice.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm the secretary, I have to see who's here.
Yes, you did. Roll call.
It's a one-man show.
Yes, it is.
All right. So we just go around the table and introduce ourselves. Is that sufficient for roll call?
Yes, one is on the tape, that's fine.
Okay. I'll start with myself, Ann, this is a present.
Vernon Burton, present.
Present Ann.
Earl Farmer, present.
Teresa Lane, present.
Thomas Building. All right, and we're gonna. Derek. And Derek, Wayne Scott, city engineers here, city administrators here. Deborah Howell's here, permanent clerk, and of course, the city clerk is taking minutes. Would you like to turn it over to me?
Well, let me get a motion. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
That's fantastic.
I second the motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Make the motion.
I make the motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved.
Good.
Okay, and if the, city administrator would like to go ahead and go through the items that are on the agenda.
I would be happy to. And first of all, let me apologize for the lateness of the distribution of the materials. And that's what Ann was gonna say, he's already said it to me before. But it is important for you to note that, these 3 ordinances have to come forward to Pldrc for your recommendation. I would hope you could do recommendations on 2 of them. Those are the first and second I'm going to talk about, not necessarily in order on the agenda. The third one, I would almost ask that you take it under advisement because it's very complex. And I don't think anybody has a really great idea how to solve that problem. Maybe you do. But because of the need to come here and the fact that our regular commission meeting was pushed back to August 17th, we have the opportunity to have this particular meeting and get your input rather than push it off another month. All 3 of these ordinances have to do with sidewalks or land development regulations. And they're important because the land development process doesn't stop, no matter what happens. And we recently, in May, was it, Troy? In May, we had an appeal from the staff decision that required sidewalks. Go to the commission, and the commission agreed with the applicant and relieve them of the opportunity to either pay for sidewalk, as the ordinance required, or to build a sidewalk, which the ordinance is required. Because of that now, it leaves the staff in a very difficult position on how to enforce the ordinances, and the commission has already waived that requirement for at least one applicant, based on not having the sidewalk appear on the drawing of the survey for the building permit, which it never had to up to that point. So this is, I guess, for the benefit of the staff, we're reviewing these three ordinances to, I won't even call them loopholes, but to tighten up the procedure for how you obtain a single-family duplex building permit, requiring sidewalks and types of materials for sidewalks. Now, with that, and my apology for the lateness, if that was sufficient, I mean, and
Well, I think that what we need, and not just for this committee, also for the commission, is an absolute requirement of public notice of at least a minimum of 7 days or something to that effect. I don't think that a public meeting should be held without sufficient notice to the community. Anything.
yeah. You can, as a group here, could make that one of your guidelines. It is not required by the state law. The state law simply says adequate. But,
Adequate.
yeah,
Well,
and adequate's never been defined in the law. Every attorney has a different idea of what adequate is. And it really depends on the circumstances during hurricanes, you know. And they give the example, public notice under in hurricanes for emergencies could be literally 10 minutes. I mean, you know, but that's a hurricane.
That's a hurricane.
And I agree with you. So anyway, we got this out last week. We do.
Thursday, the afternoon,
Yes,
changed it on Friday,
yes.
for a meeting on Monday.
Add things to it. We didn't change it, we added.
Change it.
I have a couple of things to say to that. I agree that when possible, if we could have more notice just with our material.
Sure.
As far as, I'm gonna disagree with you because I think if it's good enough for the state, adequate, you have to remember the intent of the law, of the regulation. If you start defining everything to the nth degree,
Right.
and situations come up where there isn't 7 days, and it's unnecessary too. I mean, we all got through it, we got here. Then you start hemming yourself into a corner. And I think the intent of the law, the word adequate is adequate. I think we should all try to have a little more notice, that would be nice. As far as the public goes, I think adequate is adequate, and I think that word is.
Did you feel that this was adequate notice?
I felt a little cramped,
Yeah.
and a little annoyed, but I don't think we need to make a regulation, so.
No, I don't, I just think that we should have some kind of guidelines that we
We
follow.
do, well, adequate, so to put a number on it, Anna, I disagree, anyway.
Well, I think
Those are my
most,
thoughts.
okay, well, most state agencies have 7 days.
The state regulation is adequate.
I know, I'm not fighting on that, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying most state agencies.
And brings up an important point. The
I would
state
like
law-
7 days too,
The
Anna.
state law for municipalities and counties is adequate. They actually have set timeframes for agencies of the state themselves. And water districts comes to mind, you have to have a 7-day notice for the agenda.
Right,
But that's in the law, but the law doesn't apply to us.
Right.
Anyway,
7 days is very reasonable.
if,
well, I think we should
I'm not
control,
gonna.
right, we should control that we shoot for, because
Absolutely.
this type of stuff, and I know you need to clean up stuff and everything else, but this doesn't require that type of an emergency or that type of,
no, but I want to get it on the 17th agenda, so that's the only reason we push it through.
okay,
And, is it okay if I go back?
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
the first one is the ordinance, that has in the title, section 11.0302. And it's number 2, I think, in your agenda.
It's on page 5.
On page 5. This particular ordinance, really doesn't have anything to do with, my preamble having to do with the incident we had at the commission. But as that particular discussion from the commission opened up the whole subject of permits, residential, single-family, ordinances requiring sidewalks and the like. In doing that, we noticed that there was a very clear prohibition against doing any construction in the public right-of-way. Now, the public right-of-way is a legal area set aside. Doesn't necessarily mean that's where the road is. I've had situations where the physical road is literally 40 miles outside the right of way. But for our discussion, we're talking about a legal description of a width of a right of way. And you're not allowed to build anything in there. Well, everybody has their driveways coming into the hard surface road in the right of way. Technically, you're in violation every time it leaves your property, the apron, and goes into the road. So we're just trying to clear up in this particular ordinance the fact that you can build sidewalks and driveway approaches from your property to the street surface itself. Very technical, but up to this point, it is technically illegal to do that. So we just want to clear that one up.
So is that the one that's on page 8?
Yes.
No,
We're on all 3 of them.
so we're on 110302.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
that was the simple one.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Now, if it's a little more complex, we also have with it, behind that is a permit form. When you build your driveway approach, everybody, almost everybody, does it on either blacktop or concrete. We'd actually prefer concrete, but some people have come to us recently and said, I'd like to do it out of paper brick. And so we want to have an ordinance that says, okay, you can do paper brick if you want, or you can do millings if you want, or you can do anything else you want, but you need to sign a form saying the city's not going to maintain those types of approaches
Well, not good.
and liability.
We're gonna allow people to do aprons out of different materials?
If the property owner wants to. Well, right now, we have them on different material.
Well, just because we have them doesn't mean we need to continue with that.
That's true. But what we're saying is we have some roads that are, as a matter of fact, less than half our roads are technically even paved. They're just dirt.
Depends on where it is.
I
too.
think
Yeah,
aprons should be
Yeah.
uniform.
That's good.
Yes.
So the county has a lot of different stipulations for what can go in the right of ways as far as aprons. To add paver apron is common, they do it, but the county has certain building codes that they have to follow. And with this release, they have to sign the release stating that if anything happens within that apron, then pavers have to come up. It's on the homeowner's responsibility to repair it, not the city's. And the waiver also has to be recorded with the county.
Liability
So,
waiver.
Liability waiver that's recorded with the county. I did the research on it, and when I was in county, we do follow a lot of the Volusia County codes. And to tell somebody that they can only do a concrete apron, when we do have multiple different textures of aprons within the city. Some people don't even have an apron, they just have millings. So they don't actually have anything that's been formed up.
That's past tense.
Yeah.
We can go forward differently. The only thing I'm thinking is in a cookie cutter neighborhood, in an HOA, pavers might be fine, different materials might be fine, because they have to be kept up.
Yeah.
What I've seen problematic with this, when you have millings, I can't even believe they would allow a milling apron, but I guess technically we have one, we don't have sidewalks. If the pavers get damaged by maybe a hurricane and cleanup with heavy equipment, and then the homeowners just don't repair it, well, then it's a pothole and.
This agreement says, if we notice it and tell them to repair it, they don't, we can go back and repair it with concrete, and pour concrete.
At our expense, at the taxpayer's expense.
And I can tell you that the paver aprons cost more money than the concrete. So anybody that's actually going to do the work.
Oh, I know, I mean, I understand, and I'm just saying.
I think we're allowed to deem the cost.
So what if in the case that, I'm just, never been one time with a water pipe breaks and they have to tear up that part of the road to fix it?
It's on the homeowners.
Yeah,
It's on the homeowners to fix it,
To put it back together.
okay,
Even if the city's water line break?
yeah,
Because that's their choice to use alternative materials.
Okay.
And like I said, the county's approach with the diagram, how the base has to be built up 6 inches, I think it's 6 inches there. and then the pavers have to go on top of it. So it still has a concrete base, it just has a decorative top.
Okay, so say we put a sidewalk through somebody's millings apron, what's that gonna look like?
You know, the apron, you have your apron first, then your sidewalk, and then your driveway. So your sidewalk should be in the city easement or in the right of way, because the sidewalk is responsibility of the city.
And the agreement says the cost of the replacement of improvements will be borne by the owner, or such cost will be a lien on the property owner.
Well, I understand that, but in the definition of what we're charging for the sidewalks, you're subtracting the width of the apron and or driveways. So that means,
That's for constructing sidewalks.
That's for constructing the sidewalk, you should have done from the right of way,
right,
or from the edge of the road.
but why would you subtract it if you're gonna build it anyways? So I don't understand the subtraction part of that.
We need to subtract.
Well, it says on 110500, page 6, where I thought we were starting. It's to determine, the length of the sidewalk that will be taxed or whatever that they have to pay for if it's non-practical
That
build.
doesn't have anything to do with the apron. The sidewalk, that's for new construction when they come in.
I understand that, but it does have you subtract the apron width from their total street frontage. So why would you subtract it if we're gonna build it anyways? Why would you have them subtract
Because when they pour that apron, right?
Yeah.
She's saying, I'm kind of confused with what you're
And
saying.
everybody has to
They
take their own
have to take
sidewalk.
16 feet.
it? Right,
Yeah.
right.
Right. So that's.
Okay, go on, maybe I'll catch up.
Yeah.
All right.
What happens in a case where a road is being replaced and it's tear up the street, and then where you had your driveway, they would then replace it with some sort of concrete?
Yeah, I will tell you, Virginia Avenue is a classic example.
Okay,
We tore up that road, we damaged driveway approaches, and we replaced them ourselves.
okay.
Normally when they tear a road up, it comes back to the city and the county too.
Yeah, so that would be the normal
They're
practice.
done the right way.
So what we're talking about here is in terms of having different material. The material that would be replacing the road would be concrete.
No, most of the material road.
Not the road, the driveway.
Yeah, the apron.
The
If
apron.
it was an apron, they would then replace it with like material.
We do like for like.
That was the question.
Yeah.
So this doesn't change that.
We tear,
Not for roads.
if it's asphalt, when the county gets there, we replace it with asphalt.
Right.
And that like is very common. I don't know if it doesn't. All right, so you want to make an opinion and recommendation on driveways and materials and the form and.
Okay, so the one that we are looking at right now is on page 8,
They did.
Correct.
the ordinance 110302. And you're looking for a motion to make a recommendation that this be approved.
Correct.
Make a motion that we approve the ordinance. Okay.
Have a motion?
Motion is made.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Can I have, from call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Second item, second ordinance I'd like to talk about is 10. And has in the title, the section 1404.01 or 5.012, but it's on page 10 in your packet. One of the things that was directly related to the action before the commission, when this individual said, because the sidewalk is not on the diagram, therefore this contractor didn't feel that they actually had to put in a sidewalk. I know.
This is the sidewalk,
Read that.
this is the
Trying
sidewalk
to be nice.
that because we approved the permit without the picture
That's
on
exactly,
it.
that was the argument.
Sidewalk, not included on the
That was
site.
the argument. And the commission said, okay, even though there were two ordinances, one that says we have to put sidewalks on arterials or collectors, the other one says they have to have sidewalks in the garden, gateway districts.
And this is where the intent of the regulation needs to be abided by, and not a specific,
The ordinance says,
that something else.
it says if they're doing any construction, I'm beating that horse, but you do any construction, if you remodel a house, you build a new house,
Right.
whatever, you gotta put a sidewalk in the gateway district or arterial. And
Just to play devil's advocate, I'm curious, because then what would have happened if they had said, no, you have to put in the sidewalk? How far would that sidewalk have gone? Because then you have basic grade work right there.
only to the edge of their property.
Yes, this is.
So it ended there.
The edge of their property, and then on High Street, to the edge of their property, going down High Street.
Right.
And their claim was based somewhat, I guess, on economics. What they said, it would have cost $13,000 to build that, and it was at the end of the construction project, and the builder didn't have any more money.
Our problem.
Yeah, so that's our problem, yeah. That doesn't seem sympathetic. Anyway,
So
so,
does this set a precedent if someone else decides, well,
no.
That's why we're trying to get this
Yeah,
meeting
that's
done and
what-
everything approved,
we're trying
that's
to-
the rush.
Trying to close up every conceivable silly argument.
One at the end of this meeting, I want to ask.
Now,
Not related to the
when the city approved plans, when you do your plan review, you have a set of city notes that's saying how everything should operate in the city. When we just have a plan, we have a note page. That note page should clearly depict that sidewalks has to be.
That's basically what we're doing here.
That's what,
Right.
that's what it is.
And then no matter what the contract says, he has to come back and go by, just tell him. First ordinance, whether it's on your plans or not, here's what it is.
That's what we're doing. And this whole particular ordinance is designed to formalize the building permitting process more than it is today. I mean, we're operating under the assumption if you're coming in and you're building a home, or you're doing anything, you know, we tell you you have to build a sidewalk based on, we give you the sites and the code, that's sufficient. Well, this person argued that wasn't sufficient. You have to have it on paper, the drawing that has, so anyway. So we're requiring a fairly detailed site plan of the entire project, including the right of way and the sidewalk. And so there's no argument, sidewalk is here. And it's part of the process.
And also put it in the notes, that's what I would do.
It is, we require, and we actually have been requiring, I mean, and we tell people when, I have customers that come in, they are notified that, you know, you
And this particular builder knew months in advance that they had to build it. It wasn't thrust on the day before the meeting. So anyway. Okay, so
So you want us to make a recommendation
Please.
to the commission?
yes,
Make a motion to recommend that the commission approve creating section 1404.01 and amending section 501.02 of the land development ordinance.
exactly.
so moved.
Second. Thank you. I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. The third ordinance has in the title block 11.05, is on page 5. This is a more extensive discussion than I think you probably want to have today, because I know you did it short notice. And this virtually affects the entire city. And when we require sidewalks and when we will not require sidewalks, and what would happen if we don't require sidewalks. And this came out of the same discussion with the same property at the intersection of Main and High. But apparently years ago, the commission decided, well, I have to tell you something funny, we actually saw either the first or the second commission meeting after incorporation in 1880. Yeah, it was December of 1880. One of the discussion was, we gotta tell so-and-so to fix their sidewalk. So this is not a new topic. And anyway, we surmised that some time ago, I don't know when, Vernon, maybe you were on when this idea came up, I don't know. But they wanted to put sidewalks apparently in the entire city. But they didn't have the money to pay for it, so they said, as the buildings are built, individual property owners will build sidewalks. And it seemed like a very good solution, and it's worked somewhat well, until you get people who think it wasn't on the drawing. And so that's how we've operated since that time. Since that time, now we've had a couple of other ideas. People have said, well, instead of a sidewalk, what about putting in a bridle path? I mean, we don't have anybody to connect to, so what about bridle paths? We're thinking in the area on the other side of Lake Helen, for example, Lemon and Orange in that area. As an alternative, you could put a bridle path in. Another idea is, what if we don't want sidewalks because we don't, if you're on Lemon, to connect from Brevard to Orange, do we really need a sidewalk there? Or is it something that perhaps make a contribution to the sidewalk fund and help fund missing links in the whole design throughout the city? This particular ordinance, this is actually the second iteration of it. It has been kicked around by the commission a number of times, and nobody has really come up with a consensus of how to go about putting in sidewalks in the center. Sidewalks are expensive. They're basically about $35 a linear foot, something like that. And so you're going to build 100 of them, that's $3,500 just for the sidewalk. And if you like the natural look of the woods, or I don't mean the woods subdivision, just woods in general, and don't think you want a sidewalk or need one, I mean, why do you want to spend $3,500 when there's nobody around you, and there probably won't be a sidewalk there for 50 years? And those are the arguments the commission is getting. So we've drafted this that basically says the only place we're going to require sidewalks are on arterial or collector roads. The county makes those distinctions. We don't have any arterials in town. We do have collector roads. I think almost all of our county roads actually. So, and they're basically Main Street, Lakeshore Drive,
Lakeview.
Lakeshore is
Lakeview, not.
Lakeview, and Brevard and Summit, parts of Summit, are all the, Ohio, I think, is too.
Not a good one.
They're collector roads, meaning,
They're not neighborhood roads. The neighborhood roads come into the collectors then take them to the arterials. The arterials are very busy roads, they'd be 92, 72, I-4s and super high. So they collect all the traffic from the neighborhoods, put it on the Main Street, put it onto Summit.
some for that.
Yeah, over that, going to other cities,
So we don't have
connecting with
to.
other cities, as opposed to just having, Park Street is just a neighborhood road. That wouldn't be, it would connect to, Lakeview as the collector road. So, the question of how do we deal with the need for sidewalks in the community? And there are mixed emotions. Some people don't like sidewalks at all. They like the open field. Some people think it's terrible, it's unsafe, etc. The ordinance today requires, if we have money in our sidewalk fund, which incidentally, you should know that for a number of years, the commission has granted relief from constructing sidewalks if they pay a fee in lieu of. And the difficulty is we base that fee instead of the county bid sidewalk costs. If the city never identified how much we took in, when, from whom.
So we don't even know who's paid into this fund.
No, you know who paid in, where you were,
So the money just went into the general fund like that?
what in the
It
job.
was different.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. And that's not good.
So that-
This particular ordinance, although we do have the word trust in there that maybe should be taken out. I mentioned to read three sections to me. But the whole idea is we do segregate these funds in the future. So we know how much we have, where they came from, and some idea perhaps of how to use them for the neighborhood or whatever. But that's just, a person has to come in, make an argument, this really is not appropriate to build a sidewalk. As an example, we've had situations where people have built homes on dirt roads, and we're supposed to require a sidewalk on a dirt road. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, maybe it would later when we actually build a road, type thing.
Well, all the houses that they're starting to build up for that, they don't have sidewalks on for that.
No, and that's another issue, that's why Derek is here. Derek is wondering why he is here, but he's here because what we also started to do, we started doing site plans, but we're actually a little bit ahead of the ordinance you just recommended. Because we are requiring site plans now. In the site plans, we're getting drainage, engineered drainage plans. So not only have we identified the sidewalk, we've identified where the water's gonna flow off the property, and things like that. Cravat is a mess, because Cravat, any sidewalk to be on there would be underwater, and that doesn't make a lot of sense either.
No, and they're all culverts.
Yeah.
They do, but the areas, it's real low, especially that one place right in front of, the house that just got finished.
Yeah.
As you turn going north on Cravat, the first house on the left, that whole area will go underwater.
My culvert wasn't even on the county map, and it took me months, and I had to put orange cones, I had orange cones on my sidewalk for probably 3 months. I finally had to scarecrow in one of the orange cones to get them to, the head drain guy cleaner had to, come out and drive around it like 3 times before he actually found it. And he said, no wonder why they can't find it, it's not on the maps. I said, well, get me on the map, because that's what drains our property across the street and down into the river. So,
And, my favorite example of a road that is one of our problems, so is it Joe Smith down out Church? Smith Lane. Joe Smith Lane, yeah. Joe Smith Lane it's not even a right of way. People are literally driving on each other's front yards, or amounts to it. But it's been that way for so many years, and now we have to deal with it as a road. How do we do that? I mean,
It's a ball field, it's a ball field over there.
Yes.
Baseball field.
So they went in and created a road and started accessing the property. So when the house at 824 Joe Smith Lane, when they went to close, they couldn't. They closed because the road goes through 2/3 of the property, of that property, and then the other portion of it is on the house that sits on Joe Smith, and I think that's High Street, right there for our church.
Church, yeah.
And they would not, what we did was we had each homeowner that's on that road ask for access, to get granted access from the owners. And the one gentleman that sits on Church and Joe Smith on the corner, and I don't know, I'm sure they've resolved it by now, but at first he would not grant access. So I think they finally got it straightened out.
The new house.
Another new house on the corner. I don't know.
The builder called me, he's like, you won't give us a message. I'm sorry, it's, you're gonna have it figured out. I think they.
but our idea is to try to accommodate these things. We just have to have the tools to have some flexibility in where sidewalks go, drainage. The drainage, the more we become developed in terms of density and impervious surfaces and all that good stuff, the bigger the problem drainage is going to become. Derek did the master plan for our stormwater system. That's going to help significantly. But in the meantime, we've got to help ourselves with how we deal with the individual lots and their drainage. So this third one I really don't want to ask for your recommendation, because I think it'd be terribly unfair to, what I'd really like you to do is to take it home and think about it, make it homework. But it's a problem that the city needs to be fixed with, because at some point, you're gonna force people to put in sidewalks that they don't want to either think they're necessary, they don't want to pay for it, they think the city should pay for it, they think somebody else should pay for it, and they're expensive.
Yeah.
We have a home, the new one in Pratt, it's the side street goes down, is it, which one is it?
The one on Lemon?
No, the one on the Pratt goes, is it, what's the road that goes?
Lake Road.
Thank you, Lake Road. It's like 600 feet, I think, isn't it?
It's a 5-acre parcel on a dirt road.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know.
Dirt road.
It's
It's
like-
on the other side.
it's on the other side.
Yeah.
It's- It's like $40,000 for the sidewalk, and it goes nowhere. So, there's gotta be some common sense, and I don't know how you write common sense and do a legal document.
But I think it's where the funds will come in, where he have to contribute to the fund, that we can track the money over.
Yeah.
I know that that's also hard to pay.
I will tell you,
That's exactly.
How do you establish that amount?
Hmm?
How do you establish that
If
amount?
there's an equation and then.
Is
Well,
the
that's a good question, is what we do is we get the competitively bid cost of a 5-foot wide sidewalk, 4 inches thick. Driveways are 6 inch, but regular sidewalks are 4 inch. And it's about $7 at today's rates per linear foot, 5 feet wide. So that's $35 per linear foot. So you take that times 600, and you got a whole bunch of money. I mean, what is that, $35,000, something like that?
But
Is that
I don't know.
fair?
No,
35.
I'm saying, but the
Yeah,
fee-
30.
Yeah, it's too late for math, I don't know. But it's a whole bunch, it's a lot more out there.
100 feet would be $3,500.
Okay, so this is 600, so it'll be 3 times that, or 6 times that. And that's not even on for that, that's only.
So how would we base that? We do that-
Well, I'm sorry, so thank you.
That's how it goes, so we shouldn't charge that.
The county will maintain the sidewalk, they will not build them in the first place. Unless they have some sort of grant or some sort of extraordinary
Is it-
reason, a school or something like that.
Yeah, so 2 miles.
Deltona was not built with sidewalks. And now they are trying to do the same thing we're doing. They set up a fee, and I think where we charge, $3,500 for 100 feet, they charge, about half of that. Now, how they came up with that number, I suspect it was at one time equal to ours, but this number changed over the years. That's my
Maybe they're
guess.
just trying to get people on board with it.
Could be,
And,
could be,
you know,
incentive. It could be,
50% discount.
exactly right.
Because
It could be
I find it hard to
perfect.
believe that the commission has charged anybody if they won't even charge a contractor where the ordinance states that has
I
to be
know.
done.
I know.
So I find it hard to believe that maybe that's ever been enforced, but so maybe we don't have any money in there to begin with. I don't know.
Oh, no, we do.
I've taken in.
Oh, you have,
On and off, yeah.
as of late, okay.
And then the
I'm
other.
talking over the decades
Yeah.
that I've been here.
The other one that happened with the sidewalk in the nowhere was 141 West Main.
Sidewalks are nowhere.
I know. Well, but that's what sidewalks are for you.
You
A
take
person
one.
puts one in, another
Just
puts
one.
in.
And it's only nowhere for a little while, eventually it'll go.
So where is that money today? No, but just.
In the general fund, we have no idea who contributed, well,
See,
maybe.
well, that would be earning something, it could be in some kind of a fund that's invested,
All,
so therefore it would create,
all our money's invested
Yeah.
in interest rates there, 2%.
but it could be some sort of fund.
It'd be nice to be able to identify how much
And that one fund.
exactly. for
And to
that
know who's
particular
already
purpose.
paid.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but that we don't have that,
We don't
so
have that, but
we can start from here, we go
Yeah.
forward.
I think that's what we need to set it up that way. So therefore, if the city come up with a project, and we see that we have that money in the fund, we can earmark for that sidewalk and that area.
So, and that's, I think the original thought of the commission was do it that way, but they never carried forth, or their staff did, by segregating the funds, they knew how much, and then coming back to recommendations on putting here, there, or whatever. But it was probably not a bad idea, maybe it's the idea we should go back to, and do it more formally.
Well, you ought to really consider what's gonna happen over there at the auto mall, because you got 348 units coming over here. And they're gonna have to make some sort of a road work or a sidewalk, and that's our, like, guinea pig.
Well, except they say that their roads and their sidewalks, that whole project is going to be private. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. They're gonna construct everything, they're gonna maintain everything, because that's one of the costs that we were calculating. What's this thing gonna cost us to maintain the roads and the sidewalks?
So they get it away.
And they said, it's all, yeah, we're strictly private. Now, it'll be private for maybe the next 10 minutes, and then of course, it becomes public after it's approved.
And they still, I think they're not, they're gonna tie into our, over the interstate sidewalk to get us, they are gonna have to tie into that, correct?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
that's county, so.
So they kind of,
yeah.
Well, it's actually FDOT.
But you said county didn't build it.
And FDOT has no sense of humor about anything. So, I'm not sure you run across like that. I mean, they just got rules and regulations and that's it, and that's it. If you don't like it, take your check over and go home. You know?
I could use a little piece of, funny. I put up some signs on Main Street, one of Orange Camp, and they took them down. I got a call from that guy, said, last year we got slammed with signs, so we're trying to stay on top of it this time. So yeah, but your right of way is not, the power lines to the street is yours. Coming backwards, it's the private. So I had to send him a picture, so yeah, we can come get your sign, and we won't.
But that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, I just took a picture, so this.
The utility companies, the utility people pay a franchise to the city for the use of our right of way. Now, even though they do pay us, if we ever need that right of way, they have to pay to move the poles. So they specifically put it virtually in the edge of the right of way. So, if we ever want to use that right of way, we're gonna have to buy extra right of way, and it's a big deal. So it's really easy though for us laymen to know where the right of way line is, because they've surveyed it to death. And it really helps. And, if you look at it, you can tell right where we are. But anyway, so, going back up, I am sure too, the commission would appreciate some thought on this. The next step probably would be to come back and meet again. And Derek, what would you suggest that the next step would be? Yeah, sure.
Good evening, Derek Wainscott, I'm your city engineer. The next steps, if we're sending our board members home with homework, would be, let me give you some things to consider about what I know about Lake Elm. Obviously, I'm an outsider looking in, I don't know everything there is. There are certain types of roads that are not based on traffic, but based on where they're located. You have rural roads, you have city roads, and you have transitioning roads. So for instance, 44 between here and Eastwood Beach would be considered rural. I would consider for that transition, just to give you an idea.
Our terms on our ordinances are collector and arterial.
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
But even collector and arterial roads are separated out into rural, transitioning, and city. It's just another level of
Based
thought
on-
process,
Based on volume.
based on location.
Oh, okay.
So Pioneer Trail, when we built Venetian Bay, changed from rural to transitioning. And there's a different level of considerations that you make about things such as sidewalks and do you want a median? For instance, Airport Road, we built a county road, and north of Pioneer Trail, it is rural because of the farms, and through Venetian Bay, it is transitioning and it's got a boulevard. It's just something to think about. The sidewalks don't have to go everywhere. When I run through my neighborhood, I run on the road, there's the sidewalk available. When we do get to the availability for a pathway, which I choose the pathway over the sidewalk. Our sidewalks are 5 foot wide, and they're on both sides of the street, and every homeowner had to pay for that sidewalk to be constructed. So if you're gonna be thinking about an ordinance, one of those things is like, out on a dirt road, do we want to require a sidewalk? That doesn't seem practical to me, nor does it seem reasonable. Now, like, what was the term we used for timing for meeting? Adequate, was it?
Oh, yeah, adequate notice.
Adequate notice. So, reasonable, like adequate notice, also hasn't been defined. But it is used frequently in conversations and negotiations. Having been accused of being unreasonable, making the argument that I am actually being reasonable over the course of my career, gets into some pretty interesting conversations. But is it reasonable to put a sidewalk on a dirt road? Is it reasonable to have that person pay into a fund for, let's be honest, in our lifetime, many of the dirt roads are not going to be converted to the proper section of local road for Lake County, just my opinion. The other thing that you should consider, and I haven't heard it mentioned here, is your city has pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, horses, and golf carts.
Correct.
So unless I'm missing one, you have 5 competing uses for your right of ways. So that is something you should also consider. Now, personally, we're comfortable running in the road primarily because I usually do it at 5 a.m. and there's limited to no traffic. When we sent one of our engineers out here to pick up on GPS your fire hydrants from the water study, he rode his bike through town because it was just easier. And stopping and starting his car, and he just bicycle with a basket and stop there at fire hydrant, hit a button, mark the location, and we're on our way. I have walked from here to the job site to look at it, so that I'm not doing my part. I do have to drive here, I can't walk here, but once I'm here, if I can't walk, I try to do that. But I haven't been invited to ride horses or take the golf cart yet. Maybe you can help me with the horses.
Well, the horses get the least amount of respect.
That's more so that you have to go to do a meeting.
Nobody knows how to get through the horse the right way, so I'm gonna give that back to you guys.
I don't know how to get a horse to ride.
I'd rather have a large road lane
Right.
for bikes and multi-use for horses and bikes and runners, than sidewalks,
The,
frankly. I am comfortable with this one, cyclists, so, and we have horses.
the county, some time ago, let's see, we built that subdivision in 2000, 2004. They didn't want the bike lane. They wanted the space, but they called it a shoulder. They didn't want to call the bike lane for, I don't know why, I thought it was unusual at the time, but they didn't want us to mark it. Obviously there's standardized markings for road and pavement markings, and they've got a little diamond with the bike, and they're sitting up, get all that stuff off the plans, it's not going on the road. They probably didn't want to maintain it because paint wears out. B, there's probably some legal advice that they received about what if a runner wants to use it? What if any other item that might be out there, a scooter or a skateboard or something like that, we want to use it. So when you think about what Lake Allen and its sidewalks and its roadways should look like, other things to consider, your roads aren't always in the center of the right way.
Most of them.
There's a lot of variation in where that road is. You do have also, you have much narrower rights of way than other municipalities do. Other municipalities have a standard minimum of 50 foot, and most of Lake Helen roads are 40 feet. So you have automatically lost 10 feet which by the way, 2 sides, sidewalk times 5 is 10 feet, you have lost the location of where the sidewalk is.
Yeah, that's great.
We have that problem with Lemon. Lemon is, they have about 3 feet of property.
Yeah.
So it's not a very large area. So they'll actually have to,
Grant an easement.
grant an easement. And that might be its own struggle too.
So those are some of the things that, as a designer, that I'm forced to consider when I'm laying out roadways and whatnot, is the width. A lot of the, they weren't called, I guess we have collectors that were 60 feet wide in a lot of the neighborhoods, and that would be your entrance roads to some of your smaller subdivisions, the 60, and then they go to 50 or 55 or something like that. So when we consider sidewalks here in Lake Helen, we have to consider the width that we have to get. Homeowners are unusually, or not, how best to put this, they don't want to give us easements. That's their property. And anytime you ask for an easement, the property wants to put sidewalk in. You can maintain it, no, you have to maintain it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking with it.
You would be hard pressed to get the bulk of the residents to grant you the for that. So,
What about eminent domain? Does that factor in? I mean, I know it's a sidewalk, but would eminent domain factor in at all?
but that's
Touchy.
It's hard, but
does,
for new, I'm talking for new properties, not for people that are, I'm not gonna go out there.
I mean, it's hard to do that with new, and then say, why don't they have to do it? Because they
We would've-
grandfathered in.
Well, maybe that's what Deltona is doing. Maybe they're only making their residents pay half, because maybe they're only putting sidewalks on one side of the street. And so maybe they're only making that one property only pay half, and the city's picking up maybe the other half. Because both sides of our street apparently can't be done anyways, because we don't have the room. And I think it would be ridiculous. I don't wanna be a
Well, Deltona's, it was laid out and constructed at one time. And so you've got a width and you have the road, I would guess, most cases in the middle of that right of way.
I'm simply justifying their half price.
So,
Yeah.
well, actually, I spoke
I
to the
think you hit it on
contractor.
the head before, that it's an incentive.
Yeah,
The cost is, well, we're only gonna actually pay this, and we're gonna the rest from the CDBG grants or something else.
Apparently they figured it out and they've raised the cost.
oh.
I think that's 11, one of my contractors said it's like $11, I think. Versus.
a linear foot.
Yeah.
Well, this is $30.
They put sidewalks in front of my son's house, they ran them all up, down the block and around, all in that area. Put sidewalks, he didn't get asked to pay a dime, he wasn't asked if he wanted the sidewalk either, they just did it.
A lot of it's done with grants.
Well, I'm sure that they
Yeah.
did it with grants or whatever funds that they had to do it, but it was never a cost to
Yeah.
him.
As
It's
long
not
as,
a new home, it's an old home.
well, as long as they're in the right of way, they can come to and do what they want.
Yeah.
The county and the city, they can come
That's
to.
right.
And if it's a grant, we just come to them.
Yeah.
They're part of their, comp plan, right? At one point.
Not a planner, so I'm not gonna discuss documents. But to partially answer your question, when we have new developments, we would require right-of-way dedication instead of eminent domain up front before the permits are issued. A lot of the arguments, and we've fixed it now, is that we were issuing permits without the sidewalk being shown on the site plan. We've corrected that action from the staff level at this point, so that now,
And we're gonna legitimize it.
Yeah. So now, it's a requirement, Debbie will send me a permit application and will require them to show where the sidewalk is. Debbie will send it back to me, she's like, just go ahead and put where you want it on the plan, and it's right away line, 5 foot in, that's where the sidewalk goes. And then, hopefully, if I understood your question about the apron is already part of their site plan. So we would not run that length with the sidewalk.
Right,
Okay,
I understand that.
okay, I wasn't sure if that got answered.
Well, I'm still not sure who, so the homeowner pays for the apron,
Yes.
okay? And the homeowner pays for the sidewalk,
And the driveway itself.
and the driveway.
And the driveway attaches to that sidewalk, so
I
you pull that section and that nice.
In the equation, in what we're, in the determining the cost, which I don't want to get bogged down in that. Do you want me to talk about this later with you?
Yeah, when Scott gets back, we'll just change it.
Okay, all right.
But you know, something that I was thinking of as I was explaining this myself, you know, we were talking about that people want to have a brick paver driveway and approach. And I don't know that we discussed, what happens, they also want to have a brick sidewalk.
No.
You can't do that.
See,
Oh,
it's sidewalk apron. I think the apron should.
Why can't you do that?
Because it'll,
Because
like,
they put
really
it in
do.
the right.
Because it
It
looks
looked,
like
yeah, it looked terrible. I mean, with,
it-
oh, in front of my house, I have pavers on the sidewalk, and your house with concrete.
You know, it
Yeah.
has to be, if we were cookie cutter HOA, it would be one thing, but we're not. And I
Unless you-
think the
If you,
aprons-
if you lay it on concrete, that's not too bad. Lay it on sand, it'll eventually.
Well, first of all, I'm never gonna recommend that you allow paver sidewalks. It defeats the purpose. The paver aprons are built on concrete, so there is no benefit to their pocketbook by doing a paver, because we would require it on 6 inches of concrete with ribbons that would keep it contained. And that's the proper way to do pavers in any road surface. Especially with all of the trees around here. Pavers would just become an absolute nightmare, from the roots. It would just be horrible.
I think paper aprons will probably be so cost prohibitive, so we probably won't have many come across it.
We've got some expensive homes coming down.
Yeah, because all limits when you come out.
Oh, sure.
What about the eagles that are out there?
That's up to where?
On London, I've heard people say they've seen them,
Yeah,
As
I mean,
long as they're amazing, you cannot work.
right? I mean, I know, back in, I guess it was March, my son saw them walking over there on the street.
Really?
Yeah,
But then, I think I was about 100 feet.
one,
Just one?
just one, and then somebody else put on Facebook that they had seen.
Yeah.
Going out there.
Well, I had a job where I had one on my job site.
Yeah.
As long as she was in that nest, they leave the nest at a certain time of year.
Right,
Somebody from the state came out there every day to check that nest. Until she left that nest, we could not work. So that part of my development, I shut down. And once the April phase and then we're gone, then we could go and work.
to see if they're
So
going out there.
that would be beyond the city to
to
determine that.
call, you know, to call.
Yeah, we don't have anything to do with it. So,
Or maybe somebody was mistaken, maybe it wasn't an eagle, but it
No,
apparently
we
looked
have
like
an
an
eagle,
eagle.
no, we have an eagle, we have an eagle.
Are they,
Yeah.
when they come out and do the tree survey,
I don't know
do
where
all
the nest
that,
is.
they'll find it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to us.
Are you recommending that we consider then, when you talk about the locations, you know, rural and city and everything else, that in the ordinance that's designed, that areas be defined that way, rural, city, and maybe in rural areas, sidewalks aren't required, and city areas they are?
Because we haven't defined those areas, you just need to think about it for yourself, like the west end of Kicklight. That's pretty rural.
Mhm.
Through your downtown grid area, that's city, that's,
But to be defined in the ordinance?
no.
Or, no?
No, I don't-
Because that's a fluid thing.
Yes. I think
That's
it's just,
development.
I was advising you on that, just not to complicate issues, but just to put a little thought in your head that some areas, even on the same road, because Kicklighter got to school, off of Brevet.
Right.
That would require a sidewalk. You're gonna get to a point where sidewalk on Kicklighter doesn't make a lot of sense. That's all I was trying to evoke.
So how do you write that into an ordinance though?
But as he's saying, you can't.
Well, don't do sidewalks on dirt roads, on anything that's currently a dirt road, you can't.
Debbie,
An unpaved, you know.
Debbie has to make if somebody comes in to build a building here, she's gotta say, okay, right here, you don't get a sidewalk, you don't need a sidewalk, you must have a sidewalk, whatever.
Either way, they pay. Either way, they're either building a sidewalk or they're paying into the fund. So
Okay.
it's irrelevant to the cost.
All right.
So they have to budget it anyways, whether it
So,
gets built or not, that's
Part
what
of the
you'll have to
building
determine.
process is you pay X number of dollars for linear foot per sidewalk.
Correct,
Or they can put it in the.
or they can put it in
Right.
themselves, according to the code.
In all areas.
But right now, it's at the discretion of the commission to approve or disapprove that procedure. So what we're suggesting is you
For
can
new
pay for it
construction.
one way or the other.
For new construction.
But it's up to the commission to determine what's not practical, and I think that.
It's not practical to put sidewalks in dirt roads.
Oh, I agree with you.
But if the person is building a house on a dirt road, they should still have to pay into the fund, because the fund is gonna be accessed to pay for the connectors and everything else and the repairs from
But
hurricanes.
if
So that's the way I'm looking at
if we're
this.
making it mandatory you pay, we've got to keep the cost.
So maybe the half prices where
That's
they
what I was
wanna go.
saying, you gotta keep the cost, underneath the cost of what it would cost to put it in.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have people,
Yeah.
when you have somebody building a home on 5 acres, that may be only building a home that's 2,400 square feet,
Right.
and have to spend $30,000 to $40,000 on sidewalks, they're not gonna build. They're gonna sell the property and go somewhere else.
Right.
And you're gonna have that.
So I
A maximum.
Yeah,
There needs to be a ceiling.
and then you'll have to make a determination too, is that throughout the whole city? Do we take all the rural areas, all the big parcels, we have 10-acre, 20-acre tracts?
Then you have to determine where, you need to then determine where. You need to say, within certain areas, you must put in a sidewalk.
Or you could,
Or,
That's what we call the
Yeah.
gateway.
right,
gateway corridor, gateway corridor.
It was mandatory, so.
But you know how these large tracts, the 5, 10, whatever acres that they're buying, those tracts also have a max build out where they can divide that property. You can also, I mean, it would just, they would only connect to, say, they could be, an acre could be broken up into quarter acre, into 4 homes per acre. Do you see what I mean?
Well,
So then if their apron would only go out to that quarter acre lot, right? And then they wouldn't have to build $30,000 or $40,000 worth of sidewalks. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? I don't know that would serve
That falls
anybody.
more under subdivision, when you start going into
Subdividing.
something else like that. So that would,
You're not subdividing, but it's the potential future of what that property could potentially be stricken down to, be subdivided into, according to the current comp plan.
Now, do you build a single family home on a plot that could have as many as 4 homes on it?
Correct. If you have an acre or 10 acres and say per acre, it could eventually theoretically be built into 4 houses per acre, so it would be 40 homes. So, and I can see why people would go somewhere else and not build, which would be fine with me, but,
the city won't be able to support itself if it doesn't grow in some way.
okay, so my point is with their apron, only to go out to that first quarter acre, because that's the potential of that home. Do you see what I mean?
Setting maximum.
okay, but if,
Right.
okay, so basically, most of the acreage is a 30 acre, right? So we.
No, that's not true, it's all
Well,
like different
okay.
places.
Right, so if I own this acre and I build a house, and the potential in 10 years from now is I could build 2 more homes on that property, right?
Or tomorrow, yes.
So then would they also then that,
Yes, if you build those, once those homes get built, then they would have to cover that third or fourth
Okay.
of that acre, we're from their apron, from one piece to the other.
And as a landowner, you're only allowed to subdivide once into 2 parcels. Anything more than that, you have to go through a planning process.
but, well, I'm just saying hypothetically,
Go through
the that could change too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying, if that property, when it gets sold, if somebody buys 10 acres and they could, theoretically, that property could be built into 40 homes, then each person would only have to be bidding 1/4 acre. If there's one house, they do 1/4, they do a 1/4 linear foot, whatever.
So a maximum fund donation based
Something like
on
that.
maximum size.
Exactly. Max development potential.
So I think.
That's just one idea, I don't know.
No,
Explain
that's
it. You're asking.
But how do we synthesize all these ideas down into something that makes sense?
Well, I think what we're asking board members is to come up with what their version of gateway would look like. Where is the gateway corridor? Individual.
And then the city would fill in gaps from the fund.
And then collectively, this group could come together and discuss each of the proposed corridors for each individual board member, come to hopefully some sort of resolution on the final, this looks good, checks off all the boxes for each one of the board members, and then make a recommendation to the commission to consider.
The commission's gonna need some sort of maps.
I was gonna say, we have to have some kind of.
I just did the sidewalk survey. We just did the sidewalk survey.
You did the
So
sidewalk
we have
survey,
that. for
and you've got some maps covering the whole city.
I have GIS for the entire city.
Yeah. So maybe we get everybody a series of maps
Should we see where the existing,
and a box of crayons.
I thought we had that from the sidewalk survey.
Well, we do, of where they are now.
now.
Yeah.
So that's what- yeah, that's
But
what-
that, I mean, what better place to start than what we have now?
True.
The key is to see how far we want to push it out. I think you look at the sidewalk, look at the city, you know.
Yeah.
Say if it ends here, you gotta look across for that, or what, how far do we?
That's where
want to go?
individual ideas would come in, and then we come together and say, oh, well, I like that idea, oh, that's too expensive, or whatever.
I
Yeah,
was
you're
surprised
really filling the
Or
blanks.
crazy or crazy,
how few sidewalks there really were.
Anything within the city corridor itself, like in this area, we know these sidewalks.
Yeah.
I think our problem is gonna be when we start getting into these more rural areas.
and do we do sidewalks on
How
one
far
side?
we take it.
We do sidewalks on one side only, right, pretty much?
That's another question. Or is
I mean,
it a bridle path or is it a sidewalk?
I'm sorry, what's a bridle path?
That's for the horses, that's the equine, or that's.
Is that like walking in front of, in somebody's yard missing the water boxes? Is that what a bridle path
So
is?
it's similar, it's
That's what I do.
That's what we call them, we should sort of label them, but when, say you're on the trail at the horse, center, they
Okay.
have that path.
Oh,
That's like whatever.
Used to, you
can
can
run
walk
it, you can ride a bike on it, you can take the golf cart on it. It's accessible, and it's dedicated, it's not concrete, it's not rock, the horses can walk on it.
man, water boxes on that rock.
It
does
used
get
to be
that-
the
No,
whole
that's what I'm
town.
saying, it's not rock,
Used to be the whole town,
it's natural ground.
and the right away. And horses could walk wherever they want, you know, you could ride your horse
Well,
up Mill
let's-
Street, they had.
Derek and I will get together and we'll come up with some maps that
The,
you can start with.
the other thing that I've been processing since this topic came up is looking at your city's map, which I probably do the most annually, sure. Is, as a runner and as a biker, it's nice to have loops.
Yes, it is.
It's
Oh my
nice to
gosh,
have
we have
loops.
a perimeter,
You almost have a natural perimeter system. So when you look and think about this, we'll get to the map where we're at now. I think I take one so that we're all on the same page. There we go. Think about loops,
yes.
because in my head, when I look at it, and obviously I'm just the engineer, but it would be nice to be able to go from that to Lake Pearl, down to Lake View, over to Summit,
Down Summit.
over to Church,
Yep.
Church to Ohio, Pennsylvania, and come back to the parks in the middle of town, go back out to Quebec, and go back up to Lake Pearl. You have a natural,
I do it now, but I do it in traffic.
so that's just something to consider. And then, the other thing that we need to get you is, one of my staff members knows where it is because he worked for the firm that developed it, is the rails to trails for Ohio that goes out east of town. I don't know where it comes from, west of town, but I know it goes through the equestrian park and Lake Park. And that's another exhibit that I need to get.
Yeah. The railroad used to be Ohio Street.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Now, is there any plan for the county to bring the trail system to?
Yes. That's what I'm talking about, is, I don't know if it has has any timing on it, but it is planned ahead, and they plan their stuff.
I've not seen anything on it, but I'll try to look at it.
There is one, and my staff member has found a way, I just have to look.
And I think that's what we need to look at too, is when we go looking at this thing in general, is to try to incorporate that
Be ready
into what we're doing, so it will meet. You know, like it's gonna come to the Christian Center, already have it set up where the county comes in, we already right there for them, you know.
Because the same rails, the trails goes through the neighborhood that I built in Nation. It's the same railroad, that was dissolved in 1913.
As the one you see?
Yeah.
Really?
It goes from Blue Springs to, Little and New Smyrna Beach, and it was connecting the Atlantic to the river.
Are we there?
Is there a piece of it still on Wireless Park?
Yes, yeah.
At Blue
Right.
Springs State
And
Park.
That's the one house, my brother's house, when you go to his house, it was in his backyard, it was real high up. It's still there.
I mean, but isn't it kind of like protected, you can't do anything with it, it's like a historical thing?
I think it's a museum at Blue Springs.
No,
We're
no,
talking
here, in my
about the
county,
old
there's a piece,
railroad base right now.
It's.
there's a piece of it still out here.
Rails?
But, yeah,
It went down Ohio. I had to look, it used to go right down, it came out here to a lumber mill, which was right where Knowledge used to be. The train went through, came down Ohio, turned and went, I think up there where White House there, it turns right there, then it went all through grades, it went through grades, and went to the river. That's the old rail system.
Yeah. It's a cool little story, but I mean, it didn't last very long because of obvious improvements to other things, but when Spruce Creek dries out in the drought, you can go through a certain spot and you can see the cut-off trestles.
Yeah, we found some stakes out my brother's house.
That we did too.
Okay, so you're gonna get a series of maps and
Yes, sir.
some basic, thoughts on, what you just said about the rail and all that stuff.
Yes.
Then we'll give it to all the members and play with crayons and then come back and see what we got. I think that's a great idea, I really do. Yeah, you justified your existence.
Thank you.
All right.
any other?
You just know the business.
Since this is on the agenda, should we make a motion that we take this on our own
So we do what?
and
We
revisit?
need a motion,
Do we need a motion to,
Yeah, table the ordinance number 3, pending further investigation and
and do we want to set another meeting or a workshop?
we could do either. So the next regular meeting would be a month from now, but I don't know, is that too late? Well, let's get, I don't know how long it'll take to bear to do stuff to it, so.
materials, and let's see what everybody thinks.
Yeah. Why don't we get the stuff from there, we'll pass it out to you,
And
and then maybe a couple of weeks
Chance to see
later,
how it goes.
probably a month, may not be a bad time from now, the next regular meeting.
Just next week, no workshop.
Yeah, and it'll be a great discussion time. Okay.
No other business? You have.
No, I'm good.
Do you need a motion to table?
Yeah, probably.
So,
Well,
take it to the next meeting. We're gonna have a meeting on whatever.
It'd be the 4th Friday of August.
Monday.
Oh, Monday.
That's not a
Monday, today, Monday?
Yeah, the rest of it, thank you. I'm gonna be very
it's
good.
28, August 28.
August 20th.
So would you like?
20.
That's sufficient notice now.
August 28th.
Perfect. Good. All right, that'll be the next meeting.
We can vote on that, we've got a motion.
You need a second and a vote.
I
Yeah,
need
you
a
need a
second.
second.
I second. Oh, you're all second.
All in favor?
Nice.
Nothing else, let's adjourn.
Thank you.